Well, it looks like we have a WWE Hall of Famer in the White House. What is up? GoodMicWork back at you with a commentary that I really didn't think I was going to do. If you guys heard my last commentary, I mentioned my upcoming schedule, and I'm going to give you a DVD review this weekend, and then after that, I really wasn't going to be up here again until after next week's Raw and SmackDown to do a joint review of both shows and to predict the Survivor Series pay-per-view. But in light of a major bombshell, a major swerve, and America turning heel, and plus given everything I've said in my last commentary, I figured I got no choice but to come up here and say at least one more thing. Now, before anybody freaks out, later on in this commentary I will be giving my reaction to the results of the election, and you might be surprised how fair to Donald Trump I'm actually going to be. I purposely did not mention anything about politics or the election throughout this whole mind-numbing process because I think I can speak for everyone when I say we're sick of it. We're sick and fucking tired of it. Plus, I want my channel to be a retreat from all of that. You guys come here, we talk about wrestling, we have a good time. It kind of separates you from that world. However, this is such a big, monumental, historic moment that really affects everybody worldwide, not just here in the United States. I figured I would have to come up here and say something, so I purposely waited until the night before the election for one commentary on my political opinions, and that's it. And I really had no plans of bringing it up again because I didn't think it really mattered. But something big happened and something that we didn't expect happened. So unfortunately, when I say I'm only going to talk about it once, what I really mean is twice. This will be my reaction and how I am dealing with it and how I feel we should all deal with it. And I think a lot of you might really like to hear it. So after this, there's really not going to be any reason for me to discuss politics, at least for another 4 years. So you guys can all relax there. And I don't want to hear any shit about it either. You know, I mean, everybody talks about this. Salamonster, you know, all the other big YouTubers or podcasters out there, they talk about politics a lot. I really don't. So I don't want anybody giving me any shit about it. You're not going to have to hear this anymore after this commentary. So if it really bothers you, then just don't fucking listen to this commentary. But never fear, that's not what this commentary is going to be about. The whole thing is not going to be about the election. I'm also going to talk about SmackDown, which I've really been neglecting. Through no fault of my own, my schedule has just not really permitted me in the past couple of weeks to really talk in detail about SmackDown. So in a way, I'm happy that I'm up here because it gives me a chance to talk about SmackDown a little bit more. And of course, next week is a huge show. And just to reiterate my schedule next week, I'm going to wait until after Raw and SmackDown because they're both going to have pretty big shows. SmackDown's 900th episode, Edge is going to be on that show. The Undertaker is going to be on that show. Monday Night Raw is going to have a face-to-face encounter with Brock Lesnar and Bill Goldberg. And Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon will also be on Monday Night Raw. So I think both shows are going to be really good. So I think next week's commentary will be a lot of fun. So keep an eye out around Thursday. I'm going to have a big joint review. It should be pretty long, probably a good hour long. Reviewing both of the go-home episodes of Raw and SmackDown and predicting the entire Survivor Series pay-per-view, so stay tuned for that. But tonight I want to just give a casual review of SmackDown and maybe touch on a few things that I've missed in the past couple of weeks, and then we'll get into all the other nonsense at the end of the commentary. But as far as SmackDown goes, we do know it was from Scotland, just like Monday Night Raw was, and it opened up with an AJ Styles promo, and they showed all of the highlights from the past couple of weeks. I haven't mentioned too much about this. It started, of course, when James Ellsworth cost Dean Ambrose an opportunity to get a WWE title shot. And then last week on SmackDown, he's apologizing. Dean Ambrose kind of half-assed forgives him. And as I predicted, Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon wound up giving Dean Ambrose another chance at AJ Styles, this time completely banning James Ellsworth from ringside. And he somehow still found his way out there and caused all sorts of commotion and distraction. AJ Styles even attacking him. It was just the distraction that Dean Ambrose needed to hit AJ with the dirty deeds and pin him and get an opportunity to wrestle for the WWE title, which will take place at TLC. They announced that on SmackDown, the main event of a pay-per-view that's after a pay-per-view that we haven't even had yet. The main event has already been announced, so that's pretty cool and pretty rare. And it's going to be a TLC match for the WWE title. That should be a damn fun match to watch. We haven't gotten a chance to see AJ Styles in a TLC match, at least not in the WWE. And I think him and Dean can have a good time in there. I'm actually really looking forward to that main event. I know this is way ahead, but I'm still predicting AJ to retain in that TLC match. I want him to go into the beginning of the year and into the Royal Rumble at least as the WWE champion, hopefully carrying that belt all the way to WrestleMania. So anyway, back to SmackDown. AJ is out there cutting his promo. Baron Corbin comes out, who was on that SmackDown team. The SmackDown team consists of AJ Styles, Baron Corbin, Dean Ambrose, Bray Wyatt, and Randy Orton. Corbin comes out, seems like he doesn't really have any interest at all in being on the team, even threatens to walk out. The Wyatt family shows up with their creepy-ass music, and Randy Orton is standing side by side with them, so Randy Orton at least is pretending to be a full-blown member of the Wyatt family, and he's playing the part pretty good. I'm actually somewhat intrigued by it, even though I think at the end of the day, it's, Orton's got to be setting him up, obviously. It's still kind of fun to watch almost. It's just something different for Randy Orton, and I definitely can't complain about that. After they come out there, Dean Ambrose shows up, and he's bringing James Ellsworth along with him. And I love JBL and David Otunga's insults of this guy. JBL immediately screams, "How did Dean get that thing through customs?" And I think David Otunga called him the Ginger National Superstar or something like that. I think AJ Styles said he looked like a foot. I've always thought he looked like E.T. So James Ellsworth is a really interesting looking person, to say the least. But I'm so happy for him. The motherfucker's got theme music and a t-shirt, for crying out loud. I'm sure he's got a contract by now. We are then joined by Shane McMahon, who comes out and tries to cool a lot of people's heads because it's starting to get a little bit tense in there. And they even announced that James Ellsworth will be SmackDown's mascot at Survivor Series, if you can believe that. And Shane McMahon announces later on in the main event there will be a 6-man tag between Dean Ambrose, James Ellsworth, and Baron Corbin taking on the Wyatt family. And Baron Corbin says, "You know what? I don't want to do that. Fuck off." And he leaves. So later on backstage, he winds up talking to Shane McMahon, who says, "You know what? That's fine. You don't want to be in the 6-man match, whatever. How about instead you take on a guy that you've been giving a lot of shit to and that has been injured for a while, a returning Kalisto." And then also later on in a backstage segment, since Baron Corbin will no longer be in the 6-man match, Daniel Bryan tells Dean Ambrose and James Ellsworth that he will be replaced by Cain. So the main event will be Cain, James Ellsworth, and Dean Ambrose versus the Wyatt family. Now, getting back to the Baron Corbin and Kalisto thing, here's where it gets interesting. Later on, they had their match. And before the match gets underway, Baron Corbin attacks Kalisto and starts fucking him up and winds up falling down, slips off the ring apron, and injures his knee. And Kalisto takes advantage of that and drop kicks his knee right up against the ring steps, and he's injured, and that's a whole storyline angle to get him out of the Survivor Series match. So the first big story is that Baron Corbin is no longer on the Survivor Series team, and they have to replace him by the end of the night. We'll talk about that replacement in a minute. But getting back to Kalisto, it was announced on SmackDown in something that I think I predicted in my last commentary. I was talking about the Cruiserweight division, and I was wondering what the future of it would be. And sure enough, they announced on SmackDown that Kalisto will be getting a title shot against Cruiserweight champion Brian Kendrick. And I can only assume that's because a Raw guy is getting an opportunity at a SmackDown title, so they think it's only fair that a SmackDown guy should get an opportunity for a Raw title. Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon announced that if Kalisto is able to win the Cruiserweight Championship, not only would the title come to SmackDown, but the entire Cruiserweight division would come over to SmackDown. And I have said since day one that I thought the Cruiserweight division would be much better suited for SmackDown. I don't know why, it just feels like it fits better over there. You got Mauro Ranallo on commentary, who did the Cruiserweight Classic with SmackDown's general manager Daniel Bryan. Why the hell that division is on Raw, I have no idea. They might actually be gearing up to switch it around. And when you think about that new show, the Cruiserweights are going to have their own brand new show, 205 Live. And it begins on November 29th, which is a Tuesday. So it's looking extremely likely that the Cruiserweight division is going to switch over to SmackDown, and they are going to have a Cruiserweight show immediately following SmackDown, most likely every single Tuesday, and I think that's an awesome idea. I don't know what everybody else is saying about it. I don't know what the opinions out there are. There could be people that think this is a stupid idea. I personally think the Cruiserweight division would get over better on SmackDown. And now they're getting their own show. If it immediately follows a show that they are featured on, I think that would make so much more sense. It wouldn't make sense for 205 Live to air right after SmackDown. It seems like the Cruiserweight show should come after Raw, if that's the case. But then you're talking about 4 or maybe even 5 hours of wrestling, and that's crazy. SmackDown is only a 2-hour show. You add an hour of Cruiserweight action at the end of that, and it could work out pretty nicely. So I, for one, am in favor of it. And I suppose that's not set in stone. I mean, Kalisto could still technically lose, and the title could stay over on Raw, but at this point, it doesn't really seem like that's the case. And another thing I mentioned in my last commentary, it could be a trade. They might be moving the Intercontinental title over to Raw. Now, to me, they bring the Intercontinental belt to Raw. I think that's going to diminish the value of the U.S. title and the Intercontinental title if they're both on the same show. So I think each show needs to have their own secondary champion. So I, for one, am rooting hard for Dolph Ziggler to beat Sami Zayn. I really don't think it's necessary to move the Intercontinental title to Raw. I think it needs to stay exactly where it is. And speaking of the Intercontinental title, The Miz is going to get his rematch against Dolph Ziggler on that 900th show next week, and it will be a title match. Hopefully, Dolph will just retain that and go on to face Sami Zayn at Survivor Series, because I think that can be a damn good match. But I did see some more teasing of the split between The Miz and Maurice in that backstage segment with Daniel Bryan and Shane, because Maurice kind of accepted the match on The Miz's behalf, and he looked a little bit surprised. So, like I mentioned in the last time I talked about this, is I really just think it's a dumb idea to split up The Miz and Maurice. There's just nothing she can offer on her own. I think they're great together. They're a great pair. And the whole overall presentation works very well with them as heels. And I think it would be really dumb for either one of them at this point to turn babyface. So even though SmackDown was a taped show and it came from overseas, they gave us a lot of pretty big announcements on this show. So you can almost see WWE shaking things up. And like I said, this is a really good opportunity. Survivor Series is a really good opportunity for them to shuffle some shit around, because, you know, remember when they did the draft, they probably decided all this shit the very same week. And as things settle down and both shows start moving forward, they might be realizing that, hey, some things might be better off on other shows, and some of these joint pay-per-views could be a really good way for them to move some stuff around. They could potentially move the IC belt. They could potentially move the Cruiserweight division. We might even see a defection of some kind, maybe in the main event. You would have to think that somebody maybe in the main event might turn on their team and join the other show. And by the way, I feel like I'm losing my voice here too, talking, so I apologize if I sound a little raspy. As far as the SmackDown main event goes, the Wyatt family did defeat Dean Ambrose, James Ellsworth, and Cain in that six-man match. When James Ellsworth is setting up Bray Wyatt for no-chin music, and he counters and hits Ellsworth with a vicious Sister Abigail for the pin and the victory. Now, after the match, Shane and Daniel Bryan had to come back out to the ring because they needed to inform everybody who the new fifth man of the team was going to be since Baron Corbin was out. Shane McMahon basically left it up to Daniel Bryan to make the decision. He had the list of the SmackDown roster there in his hand all night. He said, all right, I'll take a look at it, and I'll have an answer for you before the show goes off the air. So they're back in the ring, and Daniel Bryan starts talking about how he made this decision. He was thinking about everybody on the roster, and he even brought up himself. He said, if you look in the top right-hand corner, there's my name, but I can't compete. But there's another name in the top left-hand corner who can, and that name is Shane McMahon. So on one hand, cool, we get to see Shane in the ring again, but at the same time, with all that talent on the SmackDown roster, they gave the opportunity, a spot in the main event to Shane. Okay, I mean, he worked with Taker at Hell in the Cell at WrestleMania, so it's not like he's not worthy. Shane being involved just makes me wonder what kind of a finish they're going to do. I mean, you have a non-wrestler on the SmackDown team, and you have a mascot that weighs about 110 pounds on the team as well. So far, Raw's team looks a bit stronger. So I'm just wondering what kind of swerves and stuff they are going to throw at us. But after Daniel Bryan does propose Shane being on the team, he responds by doing the yes chant, so clearly he accepts, and now Shane McMahon is on the team. Now it's possible that on the 900th SmackDown next week, maybe they do something else, and Shane is written out of the team, and they bring somebody else in. John Cena, I don't believe, is going to be at Survivor Series, so it probably won't be him, but maybe he could come back. The Undertaker is going to be on that show. Maybe he has a confrontation with Shane McMahon. Don't forget, they got a ton of history from WrestleMania, so I wouldn't be surprised to see the two of them in the ring together next week on SmackDown, and maybe Shane steps aside and lets Taker have that final spot. So there's a lot of things they can do, but as it stands right now, Shane McMahon is on the team, and it looks like it's a done deal. As far as the rest of SmackDown, not a whole lot to talk about, although I will mention a few of the results, of course. We had the women's title match that had been advertised between champion Becky Lynch defending against Alexa Bliss. Becky won with a tap out, although Alexa Bliss's foot was on the rope during the whole thing, so that will set up some sort of a rematch there. And same goes with the women. If WWE wants to move some stuff around with the women, they could do that at Survivor Series as well. I mean, you could have somebody defect or turn heel or do something like that. They might feel that one woman might be better off on another show or something like that. So maybe if WWE is dumb enough to take the Intercontinental title and put it on Raw with the U.S. belt, Maybe a consolation prize from Raw could be a gift like Cesaro or something like that over to SmackDown. I don't know. But just like I think some of the men have the opportunity to switch shows here, the same could be true for the women. We've finally been getting a glimpse of Curt Hawkins in the past couple of weeks. He finally made his debut, and it has really, really fallen flat. I'm not going to shit on it yet. I got a little bit of a kick out of some of the vignettes they did. And when you look at characters like Matt Hardy, how stupid we thought that was and how it's probably one of the most brilliant things in wrestling now, you got to give really, really dumb gimmicks like this a chance. Yeah, what we've seen from Curt Hawkins so far is pretty fucking stupid, but if he sticks with it and he stays in character and he takes it seriously, The New Day is another great example of that. I think maybe, just maybe, it could get over. So I'm not ready to completely bury Curt Hawkins yet. I'm glad to see him back. He got a victory on SmackDown against Apollo Crews, which it's kind of weird how he's really declined. WWE seemed like they were about to give this guy a title belt, and now he's bottom of the card jobber. So we'll see if he works his way back up to another push sometime in the future. Breezango, who I haven't seen in a while, they earned themselves a spot on the SmackDown Tag Team 5-on-5 match versus Raw by beating the Vaudevillains in a Survivor Series qualifier, so nothing significant there. Breezango looked ridiculous, dressed like village people or something. I don't know what the fuck they were supposed to be. And the Vaudevillains are just jobbers at this point. We had another women's match as well. Naomi got the victory over Natalya. Natalya is just there, it seems like, to put other women over, which is fine. But I think they could do more with Natalya if they wanted, especially if they made her a really kind of Charlotte type of heel. I think if Natalya is ever going to succeed or really ever become a big deal, that's the only type of character she's going to be able to do that'll ever have a chance to get over. She needs to be a badass ass kicker who doesn't give a shit and is full of herself. Maybe not the same push like winning a title and holding it for a year or anything like that, but that type of character, I think that's what they need to do with Natalya. What else am I missing? I think that's it, right? As far as SmackDown goes, I don't have any other matches written down. Like I said, next week is going to be a huge show. 900th episode. Edge is going to be there. Undertaker's going to be there. I would love for The Rock to be there, although we know he won't. But he better fucking be there for the 1000th show, I'll tell you that. That'll be about, 2 years away now? So WWE, clear The Rock's schedule for whatever that day is, and make sure he's there for the 1000th episode. If he's not, I might have to lay the smack on old Dwayne myself. And I also mentioned in my last commentary my WrestleMania ideas. A lot of people complimented me on that Stone Cold and Goldberg match, saying that they never even thought about that. Now, it's a long shot. Stone Cold, I don't think, is really coming back. But when you think about the money that could be involved in that main event, how badly we wanted to see that back in the day. And I think both guys have just an easy enough style to where they could go out there and protect themselves and be safe and actually maybe even have a decent match. I mean, Austin could always go in there, and Austin's always been a pro. And I think an Austin-Goldberg match could be a hell of a lot better than an Undertaker versus Sting match or something like that. So it's just something to keep in the back of your mind. Odds of it happening are very, very slim, but think about the money. Think about the payday for Stone Cold. That could be the big-time money attraction match that a lot of fans might actually like to see. Some of these matches between these old veterans who haven't been in the ring in decades, there is a big portion of the wrestling audience that really has no interest in those matches. But this is one where I think everybody would have interest. So now's our only chance. It's probably still a slim chance, but it's at least a chance. Both guys are in good graces with the company. They could easily come back in. WWE could pay them a shit ton of money, and they could draw a huge house for WrestleMania based off that match, and it could satisfy a lot of us fans that always wanted to know and always wanted to see that confrontation taking place. I mean, Bill Goldberg challenged Austin on The Tonight Show like 20 years ago. Remember that? So it's a match that I would like to see, and it's just a match that I've been thinking a lot about, and I think I'm setting myself up for a big disappointment because I don't think it's going to happen, but the fact that it's possible is kind of exciting me. So I appreciate everybody letting me know how much you liked that idea. Will it happen? I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but my money says no. Now on to the part of the commentary where I talk about my reaction to the United States election. And this will be the last I say of it. You're never going to hear me talk politics again. But after what I said in my last commentary, I figured I better come up here and say something because holy shit, was I wrong. And were a lot of people wrong. The entire fucking world was wrong. Donald Trump's own people didn't think he stood a chance in this thing. And he proved everybody wrong. The shock of this thing, I think, is so intense that it's having a very strange effect on me. It's almost having like a nitrous oxide type effect where I'm just kind of like stoned or high or at a loss for words. I almost can't even react to this properly. So I've had a day to think about it and kind of process everything and how fucking crazy this is. And I'll give you my opinions on it. Now, first of all, there's a lot of outraged people out there, which we knew there would be. Now, Donald Trump pulled off a monumental upset. The swerve of swerves. I don't think anybody saw this coming. I mean, very, very few people saw it coming. Put it that way. This guy was so insane that it just did not seem like he was ever going to find enough support to wind up winning an actual presidential election. I mean, we have 5 living former presidents. I mean, I guess if you include Obama, none of them support this guy. And my only source of comfort really right now as I process the information is that it does look like Hillary Clinton has won the popular vote. So when the Trump supporters are screaming at everybody saying the American people have spoken and you need to accept it, well, the American people have spoken, and they voted for Hillary Clinton. More Americans voted for Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump. It's the Electoral College system that got him in office, and now this is twice in the last 16 years, because it happened to Al Gore in 2000, where a presidential candidate lost the popular vote, but still won the election. So, you know, at least I can say, all right, the United States hasn't completely lost their mind, but I can't even take that much joy in that. You know why? Because it's by a sliver of a margin. I mean, she just barely beat him in the popular vote. I thought she would beat him by a solid 2 million or more votes. And we're looking at, you know, a couple of 100,000 or something like that. So this is a very small margin. So it's not something that I can even brag about because she still barely won that. Now, where I'm going to give Trump a ton of credit, look at what he had to do. Look at what he would have had to accomplish to win the presidency, which is why myself and so many other people were very confident. I know how the Electoral College system works, and no matter how many times you did the math, there was absolutely no way Trump was going to be able to win this thing. The only way he was going to be able to do it is if you took the major swing states, the Ohios, the Pennsylvanias, the North Carolinas, the Floridas. The only way he was going to be able to win is if he ran the table on all of those states. And this guy is one of the most unpopular presidential candidates in history. There's no way he's going to be able to do that. And as you're watching the coverage, you start seeing that he's up in every county, he's up in every state, and you're like, okay, you know, the big cities with all the diversity and all the fucking normal people their votes haven't come in yet, so Hillary's going to make up a lot of ground, and she did, but it wasn't enough. Trump did a much better job of getting his type of supporters out there to vote. You know, when Trump says those offensive, racist things, talking about deporting millions of people, building a wall, making fun of the handicapped, abusing women, and just coming off as a racist douchebag, that doesn't upset his fan base. That motivates them. They like that kind of talk. You know, when he started talking about grabbing women's pussies, that just made them go to the voting booth. This is such a crazy-ass country. So on one hand, I'm like, what the hell is America's problem? But on the other hand, Donald Trump knew his audience. And you think about the debates. This guy lost all the debates. He never said anything. He never does say anything. All of his campaign talk has been, I've got big plans. Bigger plans than anybody else. I'm going to do things that you've never seen. Hillary has terrible plans. Terrible plans. My plans are much better. You wait and see. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Make America great again. Guns. You know, it's simple talk for simple people. And it worked. It fucking worked. A lot of people call Donald Trump stupid. I can't call him stupid. He is definitely not stupid. What he was able to pull off in this election was remarkable. I think about the scene in Anchorman. Remember that movie Anchorman with Will Ferrell when he comes home and his dog has done something crazy, like opened up the refrigerator and made a sandwich? Will Ferrell is like, I'm not even mad. That's amazing. That's almost the way I feel about Trump right now. Yes, I hate him. Yes, I think he's a cockwomble, but you got to be impressed with that performance. You have to be impressed that he was able to get his people out there to the voting booths better than Hillary Clinton was able to get hers out there. And there's a lot of other factors too. A lot of people were jaded in this election. I had a really, really nice conversation with my conservative friend today on the phone. We talked for 2 hours. As a matter of fact, you would have had this commentary hours ago, but as soon as I hit the record button to start recording it, he called me. We then talked for 2 hours, and then I had to go to work. But I had such a great talk with him because even though we are very, very different in our political opinions, He has been a friend of mine since I was 8 years old, and whenever we talk about politics, I don't think we've ever once yelled at the other one or screamed at the other one. And he even told me, he goes, I was jaded, I didn't like it, and this was the first election since I've been old enough to vote that I did not vote in. He actually did not vote. And he immediately felt guilty about it. I mean, he's not that freaked out about Trump, but he definitely knows that Trump is bad. You can't dispute that. It's on tape. So it's not like he's trying to deny anything that Trump is, but he's still a very conservative person and a very conservative voter. And he was just too fed up with the election to vote at all. But I think where you saw that more was on the Democrat side, or on the undecided side. There was a lot of people that says, I don't give a shit who wins this thing. I'm not even going to vote. And then you had the third party candidate, which costed Hillary a lot of votes, still probably not enough to defeat Donald Trump. It would have added to her popular vote lead. But if you take away all Gary Johnson's shit, I still think she's going to lose most of those states and lose them big. And you also had a whole bunch of assholes trying to get cute. What was it? 11,000 people wrote in Harambe? Are you fucking kidding me? Don't pretend to be patriotic and then go to the voting booth and write in Harambe or Obama for that matter. Hey, I'd love to have 4 more years of Obama. I love Obama. I have a picture of Obama in my house. But you cannot write his name in, because even if he were to win that, he cannot be president. It's such a waste of time to actually take the time, drive there, stand in line to write in Harambe. Jesus Christ, America. Goes back to what I was saying a minute ago, how Trump supporters are so vocal. I saw a lot more Trump bumper stickers, a lot more Trump yard signs than I did for Hillary Clinton. I think people who support Trump like that offensive message. They get off on it, and they pretend to be patriotic. I mean, think about that. You talk about the hypocrisy. Think about how for the past 8 years, the conservatives and Republicans have done nothing but insult, dehumanize, delegitimize, and oppose every single thing about Barack Obama. They were the sorest of sore losers when he won in 2008 and when he won in 2012. They wanted him out of the White House. They disputed where he was born. They fought him kicking and screaming every single inch of the way. Now these same people are telling everybody that we need to rise up and accept our president. Well, you motherfuckers didn't do it. How can you expect these people to? I'm completely going to accept it. I mean, I was watching today and people were freaking out, protesting. I think Canada's website even shut down because so many people were looking into moving there. I would never run. I would never run away from this guy. First of all, I like it here, and I live in the South, in Southern California, and I hate cold weather. I would never go to Canada. Fuck, if I went anywhere, I'd probably go to Mexico. But you know what? I'm not going to leave at all. This is the way it is in this country. So you have to accept that. There's nothing we can do about it. And I'm not going to sit here and protest and freak out because it doesn't do any good. And this is where I want to be different than the Republicans. I just talked about how the conservatives were so bitter and such assholes when Obama was elected and reelected that I don't want to act that way. Yes, I'm disappointed. Yes, I am freaked out. But you know what? Fine. I accept it. This is who the American people want, then fine. You latched yourself onto this dead hooker. Now you're going to have to drag this son of a bitch across the finish line. And like I do with everything else in my life, I try to look at the silver lining. And there is a couple of silver linings here. Number one, we're done with Hillary. And that's another thing that I talked to my friend about today. And when I went into the voting booth and voted for Hillary, I was really more voting against Donald Trump. And that's what this election was all about. I would much rather have Hillary in office than Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is dangerous as fuck. But really, at the end of the day, Hillary was never really my favorite person. I did not like the fact that the Democrats just made her the nominee. They pushed it through. They muscled out Bernie when he had so much momentum. And I think Bernie would have stood a much better chance against Donald Trump because he didn't have all that scandal and bullshit attached to him. I thought Bernie Sanders was just a much more likable candidate. He was relatable. I think people would just like him more. And plus, they wouldn't be able to make up any bullshit about him. But still, I felt like I had no choice but to go into the voting booth and vote for her because Donald Trump is completely insane, and I just do not have the same ideological opinions that conservatives do. It was crystal clear to me that he actually resonated with people. He did a better job at that. With all of the things that came out about him, the things that he said, the things that he is on tape saying that you cannot dispute or take out of context, he said it. Even with all of that, he still performed better than Mitt Romney. How crazy is that? I was no Romney fan. I did not vote for Romney, but I always thought that Romney, despite everything, was a decent human being. I thought, despite everything, George Bush even was a decent human being. I do not feel that way about Donald Trump. But here's where I think we all need to come together and be mature. I just mentioned it earlier on. You have to accept this. All right, Mr. President, you ran for shits and giggles and you won. Now you gotta fucking do it. And how can I say that he's going to do a bad job? How can I guarantee that he's going to do a bad job when he's proved us wrong time and time and time again? And that's another thing that I don't like to hear from people. And you cannot root for Trump to fail. I do not want to stoop to the level of conservatives. From the minute that Obama won in 2008 and from the minute he was reelected in 2012, you had nearly every conservative, especially in politics, all the Republicans in Congress and everything, they rooted for Obama to fail. They wanted him to fail. I don't believe he did fail. I think he was an awesome president, and I'm going to miss him. But they wanted him to fail. And these are the people that claim to be the most patriotic. And they are rooting for their leader to fail. I am not rooting for Trump to fail. I am rooting for Trump to succeed. And we'll have to see what he does. It's going to be a very crazy 4 years. I mean, when you think about how much the presidency ages people, what the fuck is this guy going to look like in 4 years? Holy shit. And what's he going to look like in 8? God forbid if he gets reelected. He's going to be unrecognizable. Hillary, what is it? She's the first person to lose to a black guy and then lose to an orange guy? Jesus Christ. I mean, weed performed better than Hillary Clinton on election night. It was legalized in a handful of states. Crazy. So at the end of the day, I want to stand up and be the more mature person. I want to say, all right, Trump, good luck with it. You have to get behind the cause. You can't change who won the presidency. All you can do is try to hope for the best, and that's what I want to do. I'm so sick of this stuff. I'm so sick of this fighting and this infighting and all of that. Yes, Donald Trump won. There's nothing I can do about that or anybody else can do about that. You can protest in the streets until you're blue in the face, but it's not going to make a damn bit of good. So what I want from the liberals is I want them not to be the whiny little bitches that the Republicans were when they lost. You got to give them some time. Everybody's pissed. So give them some time to go out there and protest. Give them a couple of weeks to let it sink in. Hell, give them until the inauguration, because that's going to be a bitter pill to swallow as well, to have to watch Obama give this Muppet fart the keys to the country. So give them through the beginning of the year. But after that, I think everybody needs to come together and relax and realize that hopefully it's going to be okay. My biggest concern is the people that this is going to affect. And, a lot of you know where I live. I live in San Diego, and I live 25 miles from the Mexican border. I work with a lot of Mexican people, and it was a very difficult thing for me today to go into work and look them in the face. Like, seriously, I'm being super serious right now. These are people that are wonderful people. I have great employees that work for me. They are kind, they are gracious, and they work their asses off. And a lot of their families, people whose homes I have been inside, are going to be affected by this guy being president. He wants to build a wall, for fuck's sake, which I thought, even if he became president, he would never get accomplished. I'll tell you what, Mr. Trump, you build that wall. Go ahead. Spend all that time and energy building that wall. I will spend the rest of my life teaching the next generation to tear that motherfucker down. You know what one of the Mexicans at my restaurant did today? When I got into work, there was a giant tub full of about 100 tamales. And I was like, what are these? He goes, they're tamales. They're from my wife. And I was like, oh, really? And he goes, yeah. And they do that sometimes. Sometimes they'll bring in like really good, authentic Mexican food from home, which I love. But he goes, my wife and I, we feel really bad for you. And he looks at me like it's going to be okay. And he puts his hand on my shoulder, and a Mexican is trying to comfort me. He is concerned about me. He said, we know, because, where I live in California, it's a very liberal place. You don't run into too many conservatives, in my universe that I live in here. And a lot of people have been hearing about the election, and we talk about it at work, and we make fun of Trump, and everybody knows where we stand, and everybody knows the dangers of having Trump in, especially what he wants to do with immigration. And here you have a Mexican family that is most likely going to be affected in some ways by the policies of Donald Trump, possibly even as extreme as losing family members to deportation. They bring a white male, me, somebody that is not going to be affected by this dickhead at all. They bring me food and say, we hope you feel better. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay. I'm not ashamed to tell you that I fucking cried. I did. When I was like, I cannot believe you are so selfless to do that. to bring in this food for the entire staff and say, don't worry about it, it's going to be okay, shake it off. No, it might not be okay for you. And the fact that we have somebody in office right now who is crazy enough to think that, number one, a wall will work, or number two, can be done is insane. It's almost as if we've gone back 100 years. Now, with all that being said, and my disappointments and my fears, Donald Trump has proven me wrong a lot of times so far. So I'm hoping that maybe when he gets in office, that some of his crazy, outlandish policies that he campaigned with and he talked about really do not come to fruition. He was probably saying it mostly to get elected and to say what his type of supporters needed to hear, and it'll never happen because there are a few good things, if that's possible, about Donald Trump. Number one, I hope nobody is crazy enough to assassinate this guy. I don't think the liberals are violent in that way. They're not the assassinating type. That's something I would expect from the conservatives. As a matter of fact, you ever see that one Twitter pic of the guy watching the debate and holding a gun to the screen when Hillary was talking and say, just give me the word, Mr. Trump, or whatever? So I don't want to be the type of people that would assassinate this guy. So nobody have any crazy ideas and go out and shoot Donald Trump. You know why? Because Mike Pence is dumber. This is a college-educated man in 2016 that disputes evolution. He once supported funding for people to go get religious therapy to cure them of their gayness. He actually thinks that you can be cured, like it's a problem, of being gay by going to therapy and talking to a priest. He supported spending money on that kind of thing. So to me, at least with that stuff and the crazy views that a lot of conservatives have, I don't think we get that out of Donald Trump. I don't think he's homophobic. He doesn't give a shit. All the Republicans hate gay marriage. I don't think Donald Trump gives a shit about gay marriage. I think he's got a couple family members that are gay. So if they want to get married, it's not going to bother him. So at least some of those social issues, I don't think will be a problem with Donald Trump as president. However, he's also just going to be a rubber stamp. He is going to sign off on anything that they put in front of him. And I really hope that some of those things aren't stupid, like a wall or a bathroom law or banning abortion or gay marriage or any of that shit that seems to be important to the Republican side. Hopefully, at least those will not be an issue with Donald Trump. Where if somebody blows his head off and then you got Mike Pence in office, we're fucked. So just leave it alone. We're stuck with it. It happened. You can't change it. You have Donald Trump for at least 4 years. I recommend accepting it and move on with your life, because that's what I've done. And in 4 years, we can start looking at other possibilities. I mean, what about that Elizabeth Warren chick? She's someone that's a lot more liked than Hillary Clinton and doesn't have all that scandal attached to her. Plus, she absolutely owns Donald Trump whenever they argue. I would love to see her come up and take on Donald Trump in 4 years. Who knows? Maybe even Bernie can give it another go. But Hillary cannot. Bitch, you're done. You have failed more than once at this. You can't run again, because all you're going to do is bring all this shit up. And so, nice try. Thanks for coming. You had a great political career, but you are never going to be president. Somebody else needs to step up. So 4 years from now will be very telling. It'll be really interesting to see how Trump performs as president, how much crazy shit he actually does. So I'm accepting it. I'm moving on. Not happy about it and a little bit freaked out. So that is the end of the political discussion. You will not hear anything else again from me politically until 4 years from now, when it's election time again. I'll probably still be doing commentaries and by then, shit, I'll be into my 10th year on YouTube. So we'll have to see if I'm actually around in 4 years. But I promise you, we are not going to have this happen again. Thank you to everybody, by the way, who listened to this, who listened to my last commentary, even people who disagreed with me in the comments section. It wasn't even crazy. It was so refreshing to see that nobody was being an idiot. And I haven't looked at the comments in a couple of days. I'm sure some people are idiots in there somewhere, thinking that I'm the one uninformed when they just fucking elected the goddamn Loch Ness Monster into office. But I don't take those comments with any seriousness. They don't bother me. Everybody has their opinions, and you're never going to be able to come up here and talk about politics without pissing off somebody. So this is the end of it. Thanks for listening to both nights and both commentaries, and I appreciate it. From here on out, it's all wrestling all the time. I will catch you guys this weekend with a DVD review, and don't forget, next week I will be up here with my Monday Night Raw and SmackDown joint review and Survivor Series predictions. Until next time, peace.